Yes, but then taken out of context too. It's like what?
I got that fucking keyboard you blow into to make noise.
It's kind of like an infant with his penis.
Mm-hmm.
Are we ready?
Yeah, why not? To the humming portion of today?
It's the funny. I mean, it's the part that I go, all right. Well, now I know the personality of these douchebags.
Mm-hmm. Fuck the way you talk in the face.
I just love how you can't take ownership for your inability to pronounce words.
I don't know. I'm not very bright. NFL cheerleaders are remarkably boring for me. Did you ever roofie a roofie?
Taken out of context too. It's like what? We're not just putting the tip in tonight, boys.
I know that.
Stop! You already fucked it up. It's 87.
Well, when time was a flat circle, I fucked this up. I fucked this up badly, and I feel bad about it.
He called me in the end.
It's like what?
I'll get you, Gadget.
It's like what?
No, I'm part of the cool kids. Leave me in here. I'm on the team. If you guys have any vodka martinis that you'd like to drink,
Doubleback listeners, do not Google apple juice and the casino.
Hello, and welcome to episode 12 of the DBLBACK Podcast. Hopefully by now you've found DBLBACK, your news and entertainment cooperative. Here at DBLBACK, we like to sift through everything out there on the interwebs, find the good stuff, tell you about why it's worth a little bit of your time to get back up into. We'd like to do the podcast because occasionally there's things that we want to dive in a little deeper. If you want to think of the podcast here as the DBLBACKers getting together at a bar and you're sitting in the booth right next door, I think that's the perfect concept to go with. I'm your host, Brent, co-founder and co-editor of DBLBACK. I have a couple guys that are here to introduce themselves as well. Dave, what do you do at DBLBACK?
I'm the editor-in-chief here at DBLBACK.com, and I just ran out of propane midway through barbecuing, which is the worst feeling pretty much ever.
So you ate raw meat and will soon be dying of salmonella poisoning and or dysentery?
I mean, we'll see if my stomach can make it through the podcast.
I hope so. Keep chugging your beer. That'll rectify any errors in your digestive system. Keith, what do you do here at DBLBACK, buddy?
Hey, Brent, deputy editor and social media manager. I hadn't heard dysentery since I played Oregon Trail, so thank you. That took me back, man. I appreciate that.
Yet another thing we do at DBLBACK, we like to delve into a little bit of nostalgia cast now and again.
Way back.
Topher, what's your role here with these DBLBACK crew?
I'm your favorite rapper's favorite blogger, dysentery-free since 91.
91 was a rough year.
You got a good streak going there.
Rough year. So, again, welcome, listeners. Got a robust contingent of gentlemen here to DBLBACK on episode 11's homework. We'll go into a little bit of that, try to just explore what we have been over these past 2 weeks, give you our take on those, try to hopefully find some common ground and or argue and have to call each other out. And then we'll dive into kind of a broader topic that we will hopefully, jog each other's memory on a lot of good stuff. So let's dive right into the homework. I'll have each of you kind of explain what the basis of your homework was, and then we'll try to chime in. Let's start maybe with Dave's homework.
All right, here we go. So I gave you guys Batman Year One, pretty much the quintessential origin story. It was from Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli, back in 1987, right after Miller kind of gave us the quintessential last Batman story with The Dark Knight Returns. I know that Topher obviously is a guy who is familiar with this, but I knew that a lot of you guys, probably Brent and Keith, haven't read a comic book since the first time you got laid. So what did you guys think of it?
Yeah, I want to go first. So, Brent, shout out to you for that hat tip to the Google Play Store because I went ahead and copped it for $3.99 on Google Play.
Not too bad.
No, not at all. The reader actually does it justice. I think it looks pretty good on my Nexus tablet. I did not know how.
Shout out to our new sponsor, Google Play and Nexus tablets.
Galaxy Nexus tablets, bitches. I forgot how to read a comic book. That's the first thing. I'm just gonna throw it out there and let you guys dissect it.
Go on. Tell us more.
All right. Well, obviously there's inner dialogue the characters have, and there is dialogue that these characters have with one another. And it's hard for me to differentiate that. And I didn't know how to read. Like, I was reading that shit like it was like Hebrew. I was starting right to left. I didn't know if I was supposed to start left to right.
Yeah. No matter. All right. This is your quick. I should have given you this beforehand. I should have given you this last week. But your quick primer out there, double backers, left to right, top to bottom, and you follow the word balloon or the word box and not the picture.
That's actually the best advice I received while when I put the comic book down and ventured into the land of women.
Yeah,
left to right, top to bottom.
Right, top to bottom.
Yeah.
It works on the women just as well as it does the comic book.
On them ladies. It works on them ladies and them comic books, player.
Just like the comic books work on them ladies.
That's right, Rufus Clay.
Yeah. Rufus Clay? All right. So,
that's Batman's other alternate ego.
Keith, once you did figure out how to read, what did you think of it?
I liked it because it kind of reminded me a little bit of Christopher Nolan's like Batman Begins in the sense that he's going to develop these skills. He's fresh on the streets. He has no idea what the fuck he's doing. Like, he's on the fire escape and almost drops that kid off the fire escape and like has this like moral dilemma internally that he doesn't want to let the guy die while he's getting his ass ravaged by this dude like that's been trained. I think it's hilarious. He's like, he's had training, but only in karate. And it's just like, it just gave you a look at Bruce Wayne in a way that I think the movies never did. He was always smooth. Even in Batman Begins with Christopher Nolan, he was smooth, baller. This shows you like a real person. I felt like that was a side that I had never seen, and I think that it really kind of helped. It helped me appreciate the character a lot more. So yeah, I think it was good homework, man, for sure.
I feel like so often he's portrayed as Bat God. He's the smartest guy. He has something in his utility belt for every situation. So it is cool to go back and read it. And you nailed it on the head. Chris Nolan not stole. I mean, it's his material to work with as a guy who was working for WB. But he took liberally from Year One, from another story called Long Halloween. So that's why those movies were so good, is he took from the best of the source material.
And one thing that really, signaled that to me was when I think it's like the second page or whatever, you see Commissioner Gordon, or he's not Commissioner Gordon at that point, but James Gordon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw Gary Oldman on the page because Nolan used that exact character design for his Gordon. So that was cool. And that was actually kind of the part that I took the most out of reading Year One. As somebody who knows a lot of the Batman, kind of iterations, and I'm familiar enough with the overall story and stuff like that, it was interesting how much Gordon got dived into, because I think like even the Adam West show back from the 1960s, like Gordon was always just this figurehead. They never explored that character whatsoever. Certainly the Tim Burton films did a little bit, but not enough to where you actually valued him as a character. He was just kind of another one of Batman's pawns that he was manipulating. Yeah. In here, you see there's a backstory to this guy. I mean, I don't know how much the other character is developed in other stories, but what was the other detective's name? Essen, I think.
Yeah, she's kind of a continuity nightmare for some people because he has this family. All of Gordon's family and relationships are kind of a continuity nightmare with his kids and their names and their relationship, his wife and her name is always kind of an issue when you sift through years and years of stuff. But I think as they're portrayed here is pretty great. He's a guy with flaws, and for those of you out there listening to the podcast who either don't want to drop the $2.99 that Keith spent in the Google Play Store, or go buy it at a comic book store or borrow it from somebody, there's actually a phenomenal DC animated movie where Bryan Cranston actually plays Jim Gordon.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty tight. When you can get a guy like freaking Walter White to play probably the second most important guy in the Batman mythos. That's out there.
That's actually a fascinating comment you just made. Is that true? I mean, is he really the 1B to Bruce Wayne's 1A in the Batman?
Yeah, I mean, you could make the
franchise?
argument for Alfred. You can make the argument for Dick Grayson.
Robin.
I would say, I would say
you
that.
Can't hear the shaking, the jiggling of the maraca that is Topher's head right now.
Yeah, Topher gave a big a confirmation head wag when I said Alfred. Go ahead and give your case for why Alfred is the second most important.
Oh, I mean, Alfred is the reason that Batman can put his shit back together night after night from getting his ass kicked. Like, without, like, there's no doubt about it. Like, Gordon is important. Dick Grayson is important. When you get into, further down the line, when you get to Nightwing and Oracle, and all those characters are important. But the one constant in the Batman universe, basically, no matter what, even in through the 3 movies, when Batman goes a little bit rogue at the end, or at least Gotham believes he's gone rogue, like, Alfred is the constant that keeps putting his shit back together night after night.
Yeah.
I think that was demonstrated really well in the comic book, in the graphic novel too. I mean, Bruce Wayne's out doing all this vigilante stuff, and then it's at least hinted that Alfred's the one, setting up the trip to the Alps to ski as the ruse that explains why Bruce Wayne has injuries, and sets up his alibis that help him get away scot-free, except to the smartest character in the novel.
Well, and that's a big thing that goes all the way through the comic, is that, in all of the movies thus far, he's been kind of, this newest set of 3 has done a better job of elevating him from really kind of tertiary element. But, in the actual books, Batman often uses him as a sounding board. He's bouncing ideas off of him. Like, he's helping him analyze shit. He's very much, an active part of. He's not just bringing him fucking sandwiches in the cave. Like, that's not that dude's role.
Yeah.
Right.
He's the guy on the other side of the communicator, giving him all the information. Uh-huh. He's the guy he's definitely the guy that makes him the world's greatest detective.
He's a silent partner.
He's the only person in the world who can talk shit to Batman and not get your ass kicked for doing it.
That's true. That's true.
That lets you know right then. Like, if you can say some shit to Batman, like, right to his face, and he doesn't do shit about it, like, that's when you know. You are an important person.
As he's wearing the cowl.
Yeah, I know.
I thought Michael Caine did a good job, but there is a point at which in the movies he's always used as comic relief.
Yeah. Which is fine.
Michael Caine and I don't know the name of the really super old actor that played him.
The iconic guy that played Alfred through the first Tim Burton and Joel Schumacher.
Yeah. And I can't remember that guy's name for the life of me, but he was always comic relief.
He was also kind of the soul of the story, which I think Michael Caine's Alfred does really well too, and that's probably the role that Alfred plays, no matter what, in whatever iteration, right?
Yeah. Well, awesome. I'm glad you guys liked it. I'm glad I'm glad that I could reteach you how to read a comic book, Keith. I feel like
a little late, but yeah, I appreciate it. You saved me like hours of frustration.
I feel like this podcast has served its role. If I can get one more person to read fucking Batman Year One.
Wait, you missed the best tie-in to Year One.
I'm sorry. Go for it.
Year One is a perfect segue into Gotham coming out. Fuck, when is that? It's not that far away, right?
It comes
the guy
out
from the OC is going to be
late
in it.
August, I believe. And actually, the guy from the OC who plays Jim Gordon in that show is the voice of Batman in the animated Year One movie.
See?
Man.
Warner Brothers just likes to cast the same fuckers over and over.
Once they sign you up to that first contract, bitch, you are stuck. You're doing this shit forever.
Actually, I like to believe that they like to weave just an eccentric spider web of life.
You're a day player for Jack Warner once you sign that first contract.
I think they like to piss nerds off.
Yeah, probably.
Just so long as Mark Hamill stays the voice of Joker.
Yeah.
Always.
So, Toph, you brought it up. Are you excited about Gotham? I'm not. I've got mixed bag reviews I've been reading.
The thing for me with Year One is that when I started reading Batman in probably 1990. I grew up on the TV show where you literally had probably 3 or 4 villains on every single episode of that show, and then I started reading. This is basically before Nightfall happens and everything else, where you've got 8 different villains per book. And it's really the origin of the goddamn Batman persona, where he just kills everything.
Yeah.
So going back and reading Year One, where it sets the stage, but there isn't. There aren't 9 different villains that Batman has to take down. He doesn't use 87 different weird gadgets and have 3 new vehicles to ride around in. Was super refreshing and really exciting. So for that, I'm excited for Gotham to kind of go back and do that. The flip side of it is we've seen Batman's origin story 5 times now on screen, and I'm kind of, on one hand, I'm curious to see if they can do these other characters justice and let them carry the story. Without the Batman mythos wrapped around it, but there's only so many times I can see the origin of these characters. And to me, I've kind of solidified where I think they've come from. For me, Danny DeVito's origin story of the Penguin is the quintessential. I don't need another one. I'm good.
Well, and I feel like they're making the Star Wars Episode 1, 2, and 3 mistake of I don't need to know where the Penguin came from. I don't need to know where the Riddler came from. I just need I want to see those guys. I don't want to see.
I'm happy to have fully developed characters that he has to deal with. I don't really need to know where they come from or why their motivation. They can just be psychopaths. I don't need them to have fully reasoned backstories.
And it's been written about plenty of times. I think we've all read the articles. That's why Nolan's Joker is the best Joker. Well, I don't want to say the best because that's almost controversial, but that's why that character works so well. Is he's literally just batshit. No pun intended.
Well, he lies about his origin story 3 times.
Yes.
That's why it's beautiful. He
Yes.
keeps making up a new origin story.
Yes.
And I've read college length thesis posts on why this is why Marvel is doing really well and why DC is suffering outside of the Batman franchise is because Marvel will just make movies, shit like Guardians of the Galaxy and looking at all of the Avengers films.
The reason the Marvel films are working, in my opinion, and I think I've heard it referenced on either the Crack podcast or somewhere, is they're taking the Marvel universe and the Marvel characters and they're just setting up a certain genre of film in that universe. They're taking the X-Men and putting them in a detective story, or they're taking Captain America and putting him in a World War II documentary. So that stuff is always going to work as long as it appeals to the archetypes of movies that have continued to work over the past 30 years in Hollywood.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I actually feel a lot smarter from what you just had to say, Bernard.
Yeah. Well, and honestly,
Science, son.
One of the reasons why I can kind of get excited about Batfleck
His nipples.
Nipples, first of all. I mean, Affleck was the bomb in Phantoms, but
Batman was the fucking bomb in Phantoms, yo.
Yeah, he's also got bomb nipples apparently. But what I was going to say is, he's a Batman who's already set up. He's a Batman who is already in the middle of it. Like Topher said, we've seen it 5 times now. We don't need to see the fucking gunshot and the pearls again, which they have in the trailer for the Gotham show.
Yeah.
We don't need to see that shit again. Everybody knows that. People who haven't read a comic book since 1992 they know about the fucking pearls.
Well,
Everybody knows about the goddamn pearls.
Part of me realizes that I am overly nerdy and that there are a lot of people who don't know about this shit, but at the same time it's just I'm not asking you to read the whole fucking canon. Like, I don't need you to go back to fucking 54 and finish the whole thing. But there are like 4 books you could read and be completely caught up and ready to go for a new story. Like, I don't understand why Warner Brothers doesn't go back to DC and say, I have an amazing co-branding opportunity for you where we're going to, like, I know The Killing Joke sold a ton of copies when they came out with the middle Batman movie in this new iteration. Like, there's no doubt about it. So I'm so sick of the origin story. I'm so sick of the pearls. And it's funny how that's such a great origin story and it's so good.
Yeah.
And I'm so desensitized to it now.
Mm-hmm. It's fantastic. And that's why it leads to headlines on, I just Googled Gotham TV show, and the first thing that popped up was a Comics Alliance headline that said, the Gotham pilot can't decide what it is, and what it is not very good.
Yeah. You know what? I can decide what it's not, and that's Community.
No.
Segue. Hey-o. He wins 5 points. 5 points for Hufflepuff.
I'll take it.
Booyah. All right.
Keith, the sorting hat that is Topher, just put you in Hufflepuff.
That's okay. I know it's Harry Potter, but I don't remember what Hufflepuff is. So.
I think you're like a badger of some kind.
You're
the yellow.
Goddamn honey badger.
Oh, he's angry. He's going to eat some shit.
Oh.
Oh, look at he's mean. He's nasty. He's going to eat that
Ooh, he's
snake.
nasty.
Oh, he's going to eat that snake. He just doesn't give a shit.
Honey badger don't care. You don't give no shits.
You were exactly right. Gotham is no community. Harry Potter is no community. But you know what is community?
Community?
Yep. Community.
Booyah.
Topher assigned us some homework in episode 11. How about you talk to us a little bit about what the homework was there, pal?
So I sent you on a magical adventure to watch some of Community Season 5. The episode that I specifically discussed was episode number, somebody help me?
It was 511, I think.
Thank you very much. Season 5, episode 11.
Jeff.
G.I. Jeff, in which the Community cast is thrown into a 80s era G.I. Joe cartoon for the vast portion of it. This is a show that, as I referenced on the last podcast, I had a kind of a problem getting into. I wasn't opposed to it, but there wasn't a hook for me until they were happy enough to just start dissecting the genre for what it was. For all my problems, like, I really detest The Big Bang Theory because they're not interested in dissecting tropes, but rather just playing to them. Yeah. Community wants to actually explore that and laugh at the fact that at this point in our culture, we understand all the sitcom tropes. Like, we see where all the stuff is going. You know, halfway through an episode, you know what's going to happen. Maybe the punchline is a little different, but the scenario is unchanged. Community is willing to step in and say, let's just fucking make fun of it all and laugh at the face of all of it. So any primetime major network show that devotes 20 minutes to a G.I. Joe cartoon, I'm a pretty big fan of. And I feel like that deserves wider viewership.
Yeah, and I feel like the thing that like throws that into stark relief is they named Abed Fourth Wall in the damn episode. It was fucking amazing. It's just exactly what you were talking about. Is they're not willing to talk directly to the viewer and say, "Hey, remember this cartoon that you loved when you were 14 years old or younger, much younger than that? They never killed anybody. Why? If you're G.I. Joe, why wouldn't they do that?"
Let me solve 3 seasons of problem for you. Shoot Cobra Commander in the goddamn head, and we are done here. We can all go home for lunch. Just finish this.
Abed's character was named Fourth Wall, and for those G.I. Joe nerds out there, he was basically Spirit, if you can remember that character from the G.I. Joe cartoons. And so Spirit was always the wise one that spoke, a Native American. And
offensively stereotyped Native American.
So poorly judged in the 1980s. Well,
it wasn't the wise part. It was the fact that he was going into battle in a loincloth. Like, this is stupid. We have tactical gear. You're wearing leather pants.
How many of them had appropriate armor, though, to be fair?
Yeah. And the second level of meta is that Abed is Indian from India, not Indian from I'm Christopher Columbus and I really messed this up.
I'm Christopher Columbus and I struggle with maps.
Yes. But I love genre episodes of TV shows like this where it's like I don't know if you guys remember the World of Warcraft South Park episode.
Yeah.
That was really great, where the
That was
characters
fantastic.
are placed into that. And I'm not even a guy who played World of Warcraft, but I loved that episode where they throw their regular characters and all of the idiosyncrasies of those characters into a totally different universe, and everything remains the same. It's just a different thing that they can comment on, and that's really what Community is great at.
And that was a big part of season 5. Was I think they actually knew that they were probably unlikely to get another season. So it honestly felt like you were kind of stepping into the writers' room, where they said, someone came up with this idea that'd be awesome if we did a G.I. Joe episode, or if we did. I mean, they went on just so many flights of fancy throughout season 5, where it literally was, here's a great idea we've had and we didn't think it would work for one reason or the other. If this is the last season, let's just throw it in here. Like, the A-B arcs of the whole series are kind of taken care of, but they went on just fan service runs, which I actually really appreciate. Like, if you're going to get canceled, go balls out. Just go out both guns blazing and just do pure fan service.
Exactly. Like, leave a Joel McHale-shaped hole in the wall. Like, have him really fucking go for it.
I was gonna say that's probably the reason that stuff all works. Like you were talking a couple minutes ago, Toph, about just how like they're not playing to the tropes, they're making fun of the tropes, and that's exactly what Joel McHale is such a genius at. I mean, and of course it's the writers and things, but you have to imagine he has a heavy influence on the show, and with his background in the soup, I mean the guy is just notoriously good at taking something and boiling it down to its most ridiculous elements and just blasting it because of it. So that's what clearly this episode did, and it sounds like happened multiple times throughout the season, right?
Yeah.
The best thing that I think happened and that episode had going for itself, I was a G.I. Joe nerd in the late 80s and early 90s, and I started watching that show, and I genuinely couldn't tell if they had just taken that show and like strung a couple minutes of it together and then put their own characters in it, even to the point where all the little Cobra troopers are saying Cobra, 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 Cobra as they walk around. I can't actually remember if that happened, but it just seemed like it should have happened because of how ridiculous that show was.
That's the whole beauty of the episode, is that they actually, it very clearly wasn't a 5-minute thought where they're like, I don't know, let's just make them G.I. Joes and do something. Like, they actually put the time, like, the people who wrote that show had the same level of love for it that we did at the time, to throw in all of, like, the very specific details. And I think that's why it resonates so well. And again, it goes back to why, when you're making fun of those tropes, you can't make fun of them if you haven't been immersed in them.
Yeah.
Like, you can't make fun of something until you've been a part of it, like, effectively. And these guys very clearly love situational sitcom episodes, and they're very happy to dissect it and pull it apart and make fun of the things that we all... It's the same shit that, literally, it's like if Double Back was a TV show, it'd be Community, because it's just pulling apart pieces of culture and making fun of it.
Yep. I mean, the animation was perfect. It fit that late 80s style where everything was kind of fuzzy in the background, and then they animated the stuff up front. They had the gun noises exactly the same.
And all guns shoot laser beams for no reasons. Why do all guns shoot laser beams? Can anyone fucking tell me? Like, the other technology is pretty much the same. It's like, yeah, maybe throwing a hover car here and there, but every fucking weapon, except for the guy with the spear gun, has a laser gun.
That tank is shooting lasers from its enormous turret.
But poor dude over here has got a spear gun, and this guy over there is like, his primary weapon is a knife. But it's cool. Everyone else in the field's got fucking laser guns. No big deal.
I'm gonna tease our later topic. We were gonna talk about quintessential childhood movies. You guys mentioned laser guns. I'm gonna talk about Transformers, the animated movie from 1986.
Oh,
laser guns
spoiler.
galore, mother. All right, sorry to interrupt, but I had to get that in there.
The other thing, and I'm just going the nth degree with this, but they clearly got the animation right, they got the sounds right, but then they even went as far as to put in the G.I. Joe action figure commercials, and there's something about setting things back in time where it just doesn't work. If they film a little kid in 2014 and try and make them look like they're from the 1980s, it usually doesn't work. Like hair grows different or something. But they did a fantastic job. They even used like the really fine like weave artificial turf for the grass to make it look like an actual backyard, the exact same way they did in 1989. And I just appreciated the artistic, attention to detail in both the animation for the cartoon part and then the action figure live action commercials that they did in that.
Oh no, he didn't. He's got that 80s weave. Oh shit! I appreciate the 80s weave.
Do you know what I'm talking about though? Like,
no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
It takes like a very extensive budget to get the hair right. Like in American Hustle, like they kind of actually looked like they could have been in the 1970s in that movie. But most movies, when they set it in the 1970s, it looks like people in the 2000s with bad wigs.
Yeah, and thrift shop clothes. But I think what they really got was that the whole fucking show was a toy commercial. And if you left the toy commercials out, it really wouldn't have captured the whole thing. When you were a kid and you watched a 21-minute show, which was actually probably cut to 14 minutes so they could put another 16 minutes of toy commercials in there, if you leave the toy commercials out, you're not really doing it right.
For sure.
Yeah. All right.
You know what we are doing right is talking a lot about Matthew McConaughey. Because the dude is on fire.
We're having a reconnaissance of our own here on the Double Back Podcast.
I mean,
nope, stop.
You guys,
reconnaissance, stop it.
Yeah,
clap.
I'm keeping it going.
Golf clap.
Honestly, I felt maybe I have perceived this whole thing wrong. Like there was definitely a time where McConaughey was a butt of jokes, and that was all he was a stoned, stinky surfer dude on a beach with abs. And as I've actually gone back and looked at his filmography, the guy was in great stuff kind of throughout his career. I mean, I saw an interview where he was on Ellen and he talked about the work actually did dry up. So other than romantic comedies, I guess for that period of time where I was just associating him with stinky six-packs, there's a lot of solid work by Matthew McConaughey.
Dude,
and the McConaissance.
10 good years. I don't...
Yeah.
There's a whole myth of, like... I mean, so yes, if you don't like, say, Sahara, or We Are Marshall, then that's fine. But from, like, literally 93 until 2003, it's nothing but good movies. Some better than others, but good movies.
Yeah, I think, honestly, like you said, it's a myth. I think it's a deep-rooted...
Preach it.
Yeah, just a deep-rooted prejudice against a very attractive man that I would probably... I mean, you said Johnny Depp, I'd probably pick McConaughey, bro.
I wouldn't judge you for that.
You would let him enter you, is what you're saying.
No, I'm still going to pitch, but I mean, at the end of the day, if he's game, I might check.
I mean, Keith has suffered from that deep-seated prejudice his whole life.
It's hard. I mean, it's hard
to be a handsome man in the world.
He's got a stinky six-pack of his own.
It's true. It's true.
And I get it. Like, yes, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Not where none of us are the target audience for that. Like
failure to launch.
Again,
you can't hate on him for that though, because he's playing to the market, man. And I mean, honestly, he did well in those movies.
Dude made Sahara and We Are Marshall, a explosions, blow things up, find treasure movie, and a football movie between the two of those, and yet somehow he only does chick flicks in there.
Yeah,
I'm not having it.
They should have called his character in those movies Paycheck McConaughey. Paycheck McConaughey.
I don't know. I'm never going to be mad at somebody because they're making that money. I'm never going to be
way
mad.
more money.
Sahara is an amazing movie. Like, so I'm doubling back right now. Brett likes to fall asleep to Lord of the Rings. When Sahara comes on TNT on a Sunday afternoon in February, I am asleep to that movie. And I could not be any happier about it. Because I wake up and Matthew McConaughey explodes something or jumps out of a boat, I giggle for a minute, and I roll back over and go to sleep. Like, fuck you. That's perfect.
So what came first, Sahara or National Treasure? Because it feels very similar.
I believe Sahara, but I won't swear to that because, let's all be honest, Nick Cage is a half-ass Matthew McConaughey.
All right, let's bring it back. I watched Frailty.
Let's talk McConaughey.
Because if I don't talk
forever.
If I don't talk about this movie, it'll just be 2 hours of my life that I'll never get back. So I do get what you're saying when I watch it. When I watch it, I do get what you're saying. McConaughey outshines the movie.
Hold on, start over. What did you watch?
I watched the movie Frailty.
Okay.
From 2001. It was a movie that I borrowed from Brent, which he had on DVD. I didn't know what that was, so I had to stick it into my PlayStation 3, and it just happened to work.
Oh, good.
So anyways.
You're like a chimp pounding on it with bones, trying to figure out how to make physical media play.
How'd you know he had bones in his
It's in the computer.
So I borrowed 2 movies from Brent. Frailty was one. It took me about 9 weeks to watch them, whatever it takes you when someone lends you a DVD. Just sits there and gathers dust, as it does
when
on
you're
Brent's
a dick.
But anyway, so I popped it in last night because I knew we were going to be talking about Matty McConaughey tonight. And the movie itself, I was not a particularly big fan of. I thought Bill Paxton went off the rails a couple of times, and he was the director of the movie, so that's pretty much Bill Paxton, as much Bill Paxton as he can be. But the moments that McConaughey is acting and he's on screen, he's mostly just monologuing and talking to Powers Booth, who's a guy, if you don't know who he is, you Google his face and you know who he is.
Yeah, you'll know.
But he's monologuing in pretty much the same way that he does in True Detective.
Right.
Which is I can see why you had us go back and watch this one or watch old McConaughey where he does that, because he is that same guy. He's probably always been that same guy, just never been given the script to do it. So the movie itself I can't recommend, but flip to the scenes where he's just monologuing back and forth with his FBI director, because those are worth it. They're definitely.
You can find YouTube montages of just those parts. So I think that's probably the best solution.
Yeah,
we'll put those in the comments then, so people can check that out.
I mean, he also does a really great monologue in A Time to Kill, which I posted at some point in the comments on the website. It's just the guy can monologue, the guy can talk and really pull you in. There's a lot of actors who, when they talk for too long, they have to eat a sandwich like Brad Pitt, or they have to break into something else.
Go pee like Tom Hanks.
Yeah, or pee like Tom Hanks. Or stare directly into the camera like Leo DiCaprio is prone to do.
Someone who's incredibly underrated with this is John Goodman. That dude can monologue.
Yes.
And he's lumped into the big fat funny guy, when in fact his dramatic roles are more often than not incredible. That dude,
I loved him in Fallen.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Listen, there's nothing.
Fallen.
Thank you. Can I get some love? Thank you, Brent. Jesus Christ.
Great double back right there.
I'm dropping gold for you assholes, and you won't even come back and pick it up.
You're not going to pick up Azazel? Come on, man. He's going to... It happened. Get a medic. Get a medic. He just breathed alcohol.
He's still dying.
Shout out to our sponsor, Oxygen. Big fan.
By the way,
fan of oxygen in the lungs.
You said stinky six-pack earlier, and I really feel like that should be Topher's next homebrew.
I will do it. Fuck on it.
Six-pack.
I'm writing this down right now.
Note to self.
So I went even farther back on the McConaissance, all the way back to U571, a couple years before Frailty. Nice. And much like Dave, I found a lot of comparisons after watching and really loving True Detective, where there are a lot of similar scenes. If you haven't seen it, it's about capturing a German U-boat in World War II. So obviously it's a very limited set that they're dealing with, and they're trying to kind of force a sense of foreboding into the movie, which there are a lot of comparisons to True Detective that I noticed this time around that obviously I didn't have the last time I watched U571, which had been a bunch of years now. So it's very interesting to see what Dave said about monologuing.
I love how long you took to think about the timestamp that you wanted to apply to that.
A lot of years.
You just went with a lot of years ago.
I wanted to answer, had it been 2002 since I saw this movie, I was like, I don't really fucking remember, so we'll just go with a lot of years.
Anyway, I apologize.
No, you're absolutely right, because quite frankly, just like Dave was saying, the movie itself is not very good. It's an okay World War II film. It doesn't stand up anywhere, because unfortunately it kind of occupies the same space that Saving Private Ryan and some of the other actually incredible World War II, period pieces came out in, and it just doesn't have the same gravitas or even the same quality. However, the brooding, quiet, tense McConaughey really shines in this, and when coupled with the monologuing ability that he developed a little bit later on, you see flashes of it, and it actually felt more tense to me because I kind of felt like Russ was in the submarine, which is way more interesting than Lieutenant Andrew, whoever the fuck, I don't remember the last name, but like I just imagined that it was Russ and he was shit hammered in a submarine, and that was way more interesting.
Absolutely. Can we just insert Rust into every non-interesting movie? And
Agreed.
Can we make Rust the main character in Failure to Launch? I feel like that would make that a much more interesting movie.
She comes in, she's like, I don't know why you won't leave your parents' house. And he just fucking tears a Lone Star in half, lights another cigarette, cracks another beer, and says, time is a flat circle. Everything we've done, everything we're going to do, all comes back around. I don't understand. I'm going shopping.
Sometimes at the end of the nightmare, there's a monster, and it's just Sarah Jessica Parker walking across the street.
Have you seen Yellow King in Carcosa?
I thought the best thing about that show, and now I'm just going to talk about True Detective because it was great, is how much time they spent in the car. Just him and Woody Harrelson just bullshitting.
Ripping Marlboro Reds and driving around Louisiana.
Exactly.
And hating each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fucking great.
That's the thing, though. How much of real life actually does happen in the car, man? All of it. And I think cinema just in general misses that. That's such a golden time.
It's funny, honestly. The only other time I really remember it being used as well is Pulp Fiction, where you've got Jules driving around in the car. It's a very similar thing where it's acknowledging the inane conversations you have while you're driving to go do something.
Yeah.
The very similar thing.
Royale with cheese.
Exactly. Like, precisely.
There are a lot of times that I mean, we talk about that as if it doesn't happen in movies. It happens all the time, but it's usually the exposition part, right? They're explaining what just happened, what they're about to do, more than just actually talking about life or completely random things that help build the character.
But that's it, though.
Which is why
they're not present in that moment. They're, like you said, they're pontificating on what just took place or what's going to happen, and I think it's being present in the moment. Like, there's so many times when I was with friends just not even on a road trip, just like to school. Like, that's when crazy shit would happen is in the car, man. I don't know. It's just it's just like a whole different world, man. That whole thing where people say you're in your own world, you look over and the dude's gold digging, picking up like a booger, because you're just like you're almost like in a world within a world, man. Like it's like everything outside of you doesn't exist anymore. You know?
And that's the whole beauty of that. The True Detective, is Brent hit on it exactly, is that horrible thing happens, development, car, and all it is just McConaughey and Woody Harrelson fucking hating each other for a 5-minute scene, for a whole 5-minute scene. They would attempt to tertiarily discuss the case, but that was never the crux of the scene. The crux of the scene was how much those dudes fucking hated each other, and that was way more interesting. Like, the cases themselves were incredibly interesting, and the developments are great, and we're all excited about that. But seriously, those best parts were exactly. I mean, Brent hit it on the head. It was just those two dudes fucking hating each other and being stuck in a car and having to go do some stupid, shitty job.
That show works on so many levels, and that's a big reason why. And one of these podcasts, I'm sure we're going to dive even deeper into True Detective. I mean, there's a lot of love for True Detective on this podcast and on this website. So if you guys haven't checked it out, make sure you do. Any other McConaughey retro stuff we feel like we want to revisit here?
Yeah, you should go read my post about how much I love True Detective on DBLBACK.com.
Whoa, cross promotion!
I think that needs to happen. For
Actually,
anyone listening, DBLBACK.
That was a kick-ass post.
Yeah, and we'll post a link to it in the comments.
For sure.
Yeah, we will.
On this podcast episode.
Brett, you know what else is easy? Reminiscing about your childhood.
Boom!
I find that to be remarkably easy. You reminiscing about my childhood in particular.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm still in my childhood a lot of the time. So.
I had a horrible goddamn childhood. I want to talk about yours, not mine.
I was beat with electrical cords. You wouldn't understand.
So this actually worked out really well. All four of us here on the podcast are kind of the sponsors for each of these topics, I guess, a little bit. So Keith came up with this one. Tell us what you asked us to think about.
Yeah, what quintessential movies of your childhood, or that remind you of your childhood? And I had one in particular because of the Thor helmet, and that's Adventures in Babysitting.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
I watched that movie so many times.
Well, I mentioned it earlier, but talking about a movie that I wore out the VHS on, the 1986 animated Transformers movie, to this day, you can turn it on, and I can do probably the first 30 lines of dialogue to that movie as it comes on.
I would like to point out that Transformers are for pussies, and GoBots is where the real shit is.
I mean, I didn't grow up with a lot of money, but I didn't have GoBots.
I know. That's the reverse, sir. Transformers were the expensive shit. GoBots were the real fucking knockoff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. At least I still had Transformers.
He was making the joke that
I'm poor.
Yeah, you're
right.
That's where I was going with it.
Poor as fuck. Yeah, got it. Yeah.
No. Okay, the other one that I brought to this conversation is a sports documentary from NFL Films called Pure Peyton, because I grew up in Chicago. My dad, I think, bought it at Jewel on VHS.
Nice.
And that's a regional. Nobody out there outside of the Midwest knows what Jewel is.
Buttrey's or Albertsons.
Yeah, they're owned by Albertsons, so that's the wide, broad version of that. But yeah, it was called Pure Peyton, and it was literally just an NFL Films documentary about how Walter Payton ran roughshod over the NFL for his entire career. Nice. And was a complete badass. So we would watch that movie. We would stay home for summers, me and my brother and my two stepbrothers, and it would be blazing ass hot outside, and we didn't have a pool, and we didn't have a pool within our local area that we could go to for free. And my parents didn't want to run the air conditioning all day for us to sit at home, so we would sit in the basement where it was cool and watch Pure Peyton over and over and over again.
Nice.
And mimic the moves in our cement basement, where we got many a head injury,
many a concussion.
Yeah, but it was totally worth it. It was totally worth it. So if you're gonna double back on a sports documentary, go find Pure Peyton on VHS at your local Jewel. It's totally worth it. I feel like one of the reasons why these movies are so quintessential is the limited number of them that you had. So at my house, we probably had like 30 VHS tapes, maybe, and then when DVD came out, we got them.
To be fair, 30 VHS tapes took about like 8.5 rooms.
Right.
That was
so
true.
That was part of the problem.
Right. Yeah, you had to buy reinforced shelving to put that shit
God,
on.
yes.
So yeah, I think that's the reason why these things became so quintessential and why you could recite every line. Movies like that, and like honestly, they were not. It was not scripted dialogue, but I could recite the lines from Pure Peyton if you made me. And movies like Wayne's World and Liar Liar and Happy Gilmore, movies that probably are not worthy of my undying love for them. Outside of Wayne's World. Wayne's World is worthy of everyone's.
I was going to say, you watch your goddamn mouth talking shit about Wayne's World.
Yeah,
right.
But those movies are maybe not worthy of the complete fucking conniption fit that I go, that I have when they come on TV. But they were the only fucking VHS tapes we had, so you just rewound them and watched them again, and rewound them and watched them again.
Speaking of which, man, Be Kind, Please Rewind, man. That fucking sticker that was always on the VHS thing.
Be Kind, Please Rewind. That's a great point, though. That's where I went with this when Keith brought it up, is like the movies from my childhood. Like Wayne's, granted you're a little younger than us, Dave, but
assholes.
But Wayne's World and Happy Gilmore, like I was at least like almost 10 or 10 plus when those movies were coming out.
You were 10 when Wayne's World came out.
I was 5 when Wayne's World came out.
There you go.
5.
The movies that I had on VHS, and actually most of them were ones, because we're talking about poor, my parents recorded them off HBO or whatever, syndicated films.
Fuck poor, that's just smart.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
It's called fiscally responsible.
Remember, and you'd have to clip off the tab so that it couldn't be re-recorded once you got the 3 movies on your
SLP, bitch. SLP.
I think we're speaking a foreign language to everyone under the age of 18 right now.
Exactly.
Back when I was a boy. Hey, millennials, get off my goddamn lawn.
I think actually by definition we are millennials. I've just recently come to realize this. But anyway, the movies that came to mind were ones that were in the big cabinet under our TV in my family room that was entirely stocked with VHS tapes. And it was movies like Clue, which I've mentioned on a previous podcast, which was just a really like dark comedy, especially for a child to be watching, but it had like classic comedians in it, like Christopher Lloyd and Tim Curry. And
Tim Curry is amazing in that movie.
He was the butler, wasn't he?
He was the butler.
Fantastic.
Michael, what's the Michael?
What's his
played
name?
Mr. Green. Michael McKean. Actually did a short stint on SNL as well. Clue, I thought, was just on a constant repeat in the Fattig household. Short Circuit.
Oh yeah.
All of the Short Circuits.
Shout out Johnny Five.
Yeah, Johnny Five, the robot.
Brent, you're right.
Your mom goes to college.
Quint is essential.
If you have, I get it. Ding ding. If you double backers have any quintessential movies you'd like us to be doubling back on, please let us know in the comments. Hit us up, Facebook, Twitter, right in the comments here of the podcast. We'll try to get in on those. Maybe have another chance to revisit and see if any of them hold up over time when we're old, like we are now.
There you go.
That ship sailed.
So, what are we looking forward to doubling back on this week?
All right, so I teased this earlier, but I want to talk about times when Hollywood makes essentially the same movie twice within the same year or 2 year span. I brought up the example that Topher hates, Deep Impact Armageddon, but that's just one instance where Hollywood says, I want to make a movie about a giant fucking asteroid hitting Earth, and two studios commission a script at the same time. You get two movies that are essentially from the same genre and the same general premise, and Hollywood got the same idea at the same time, or they decided, you know what, this could make a lot of money. We're going to make one too.
Cool. So come with some examples of that, and we can definitely hash out a little bit. What homework do you guys have?
I actually think that it would be really cool to. We're going to be coming up on a year in business. So I think looking back on maybe some of our most favorite posts or articles that hit the site.
Cool.
That's not a bad idea at all.
I like that. And maybe figure out some additional info that maybe something that's changed or another reference that we can make to that previous post. Good call.
We'll riff off and see what happens.
Cool. Toph, you got anything?
With the Hall of Fame game happening last Sunday and the NFL preseason kicking off proper in the next following days, I am a well-noted Colts fan. However, since birth and with my lineage, I have also always admired the Chicago Bears. And as such, my homework for this week was a book that I just read. Yes, read a book, motherfuckers.
Oh, shit.
Rich Cohen's Monsters of the 85 Chicago Bears, The Wild Heart of Football. It's a fantastic look back at the 85 Bears, arguably the best defense in all of football's history, and the kind of culture of the NFL there, which is very interesting comparatively to an NFL now that won't even let us kick goddamn fucking extra points without dicking around.
I mean,
you heard me, Goodell. Put the fucking extra point back, you dick.
Toph, who's arguing? No, don't argue with me on that.
Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell is listening and arguing with me. He heard that and he got really mad, and I just made him sit back down again. So yes, Rich Cohen's Monsters, the 85 Chicago Bears, and the Wild Heart of Football. It's super short. We're talking 250 pages. It's tiny.
That's not super short. I read children's books that are 8 pages tops. That is the longest I can read.
Brown bear.
It's big. It's fucking tiny. Fuck off. No.
Just because you're a super reader doesn't mean you get to impose your standards on all the rest of us.
I'm sorry that I can read and write the English language.
It's
sorry,
really
not sorry.
Wait, this is
really
coming from the guy
tough.
earlier that was calling me a Neanderthal, man. That's how shit's turned, man.
It's really tough for Brent. He has to go left to right, top to bottom. It's really difficult to understand sometimes.
So hard. So I have just a short little free assignment for you guys. I'm not going to make you go check a book out at no library.
Ooh, can't read a book.
Hashtag book snaps. If you go hit up on YouTube, we'll put a link here in the comments. Cracked has a great series called After Hours, and you'll catch on pretty quick. They have a theme for every episode. They each play kind of a character, but they just talk a lot about the same stuff that we talk about, kind of recognizing themes in movies that get overplayed or characters that get overplayed, and why something is actually the 2014 version of something else. So I will try to link to a couple specific episodes, but in general, that whole series, everything I've checked out is really good. Cracked After Hours. Well, good. As always, great checking in with you guys. I think we got some solid homework getting ready on deck for episode 13. So hopefully everyone gets a chance to do their homework. Listeners, readers, do your homework as well, so you're ready to chime in with comments and let us know what your thoughts are on all of this. As always, Brent, Dave, Toph, Keith saying finger guns.
Finger guns,
buddy boy.
Finger guns.